In this video, we're going to talk about how we would create input-output tables given a function rule. So we're given this function, f of x is equal to negative 3x plus 1. And they want us to fill in this function table with our inputs of x and our outputs called f of x. So remember, f of x is just another way that we represent outputs. We usually call those y values. So really this is just the relationship between x, our inputs, and our outputs, f of x. So if we look at our table, to fill in this entry, they gave us an input of negative 5. So to figure out what output goes with that, well, we can just put negative 5 in for x. So we're substituting it in. So f of negative 5 would be equal to negative 3 times negative 5 plus 1. So this shows us that our input of negative 5 was substituted in our equation, or our function, where we used to see an x value. Well, now this is just something that we can simplify. Negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15, plus 1 would give us 16. So this means that when my input into function f is negative 5, I get out a 16. So that would be our output value for the table. So we can do the same thing for 0. So f of 0 is equal to negative 3 times 0 plus 1. Again, you can see we're taking that input value and we're substituting it in where we used to see an x. When we simplify this, we end up with negative 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. So when I put 0 in our function, we get out a positive 1. Our next entry in the table is negative 5. Well, this time it's an output, because that's what these guys are. So when I use my function rule, instead of substituting negative 5 for my inputs, x's, I'm going to substitute it where my entire output would be. So we get negative 5 is equal to negative 3x plus 1. Now they're asking us to find that input value, find this x value. Well, this is just an equation that we can solve with a variable on one side. So we're going to isolate our x just like we normally would. And we end up with positive 2 is equal to x. So what it's saying is that when I put 2 in for x, I would get out the negative 5 that I wanted. So now we can do the same thing for negative 11. If I'm given an output of negative 11, that's what I'm going to substitute where I would put an output. So negative 11 is equal to my function, negative 3x plus 1. And I'm solving for my input x. So we do the same thing we did a second ago. We get negative 12 equals negative 3x. Divide both sides by negative 3. And we get positive 4 is equal to x. So we found the input. So if we wrote that as a function statement, it would be f of 4. So when I put 4 in, it's equal to negative 11. I get out negative 11.